In Mark chapter 4, Jesus is speaking to a large gathering of people by the seaside, and he's teaching them principles that have shaped his kingdom for the last 2,000 years. In this parable, Jesus describes a farmer who plants a seed in the ground, and then he sleeps. The next morning, that seed begins to spring up and eventually bear fruit. His point was that the farmer is involved in the planting and the harvesting, but that it was God who did the work and gives the increase. After telling the story, he turned to the multitude and said, "So is the kingdom of God." Emmanuel family, as a church, our calling is to plant the seed and to celebrate the harvest and know that God will give the increase. Emmanuel Global is our investment. It's our effort to send and partner with gospel ministry around the world. And this brief video is just a short report of what God is doing through our collective missions giving to his kingdom work. Currently, we are investing into 42 international missions works focused on evangelism and church planting in 24 different countries. Additionally, we are partnering with 11 new and growing church plants right here in the States. And finally, we're engaged with 6 local gospel-focused organizations that serve specific needs in the Hartford area. In the last 12 months, our missions giving has increased by 33%, expanding from $157,000 to $234,000 this year. Here's a quick glimpse of the many wonderful things that God is doing.
Last fall, we gave $10,000 to Deep Stream Ministries for the construction of their new educational spaces. It's going to help serve hundreds of kids in the mountains of Guatemala. That construction is 100% complete, and children are being taught the gospel every day and receiving an education that they would not have otherwise had access to. This past August, Pastor Carey had the unique opportunity to minister in Jakarta, Indonesia, to hundreds of Christian marketplace leaders and several dozen church leaders. These leaders were challenged to let their churches and businesses be shaped by the good news of the gospel. While in Indonesia, Pastor Carey connected with one of our missionary church planters, Thomas Bowie. Thomas and his family are based in the massive city of Jakarta, and they recently launched Living Hope Baptist Church, which is new with exciting life and it's growing quickly. Many of our missionaries minister in high-risk areas where they could experience persecution, government opposition, war, gang violence, exposure to criminal activity. We need to continually pray for those serving in Egypt, Indonesia, Thailand, Ethiopia, and Ternate. As you continue to pray for them, pray for former members of our church at Emmanuel, Brian Knox in Colombia and Jen Saylor in Germany. Finally, we want to highlight 2 works in Ethiopia, Africa. Pastor Ray Hoover and his wife Wanda have faithfully served in Ethiopia for decades, and they've been able to plant 10 churches. 9 of the 10 churches have acquired land, which is vital for the stability and development of a church. Later this year, we will be contributing $10,000 to secure the land for the future of this 10th church. Also, a group from Emmanuel will be visiting the Hoovers this November. Pray that God will use us to encourage them and to make an impact for the gospel on foreign soil. Today, we want to welcome our guest missionaries, Josh and Ruth Lovegrove, who recently celebrated the 5th anniversary of their church in Ethiopia. At that celebration, they welcomed nearly 700 people to the church. Between the Hoovers and the Lovegroves, it's clear that Jesus is at work in Ethiopia, and it is a privilege to partner with these servants. It would take us many hours to update you on all that God is doing through our 42 international missionaries. God is writing a beautiful story all over the world through the giving of our church family.
This past year, God has continued to expand and use our ministry online. Whether it's through our social media, podcasts, live stream, or YouTube, church, we receive stories every week of the impact that our church is having globally. This past year, we put more focus into developing our YouTube channels, and God has really blessed this focus. In the last year, Bible teaching on these channels has been viewed over 800,000 times in 95 different countries globally. Just recently, Dwayne from California listened to a YouTube episode where he heard the gospel for the first time and ended up reading the book Done. Shortly afterwards, placed his faith in Jesus Christ. This fall, he's planning to be baptized and find a church home which leads me to some very exciting news for our church. There is a growing number of people who engage with Emmanuel from great distances, who don't necessarily have a church that they can call home. Some are shut in, some live in remote areas, but many of them have expressed a sincere desire to call Emmanuel their church home and are already very engaged with our church. So this fall, we will be introducing a global membership model to better serve these believers. Hermanus, who watches our church live stream from South Africa, recently wrote Pastor Matt an email expressing how excited he is to officially join a church body. Belinda from Arizona recently wrote in and said, "For some time, this is the church that my husband and I prayed that we could attend. Well, recently he passed, and perhaps when he got to heaven, he put in a special request because shortly after he went home to be with the Lord, I was introduced to Emmanuel, a video of your service, and I was hooked. God is so good." Church, would you please be in prayer as we develop this concept over the coming months?
Emmanuel family, God is using you. He's using our collective generosity around the world. Jesus' kingdom is growing, and we get to be a part of that work. We plant and rejoice in the harvest as He gives the increase. Imagine the stories we will one day celebrate in heaven because of the seeds we're planting right now. This video is just the beginning. It's just the introduction to an entire month of wonderful reports, good news, and exciting initiatives. So let's ask God to grow our vision and increase our capacity to advance His kingdom.